Hey y'all, hope you're doing good. Yeah, we're good. Just checking. So, it's been a while. I finally have my voice back, which is really nice. So, my daughter and I were pretty sick for a few weeks, and I had to unfortunately lose my voice. I say had to because it feels like I don't know. I always feel like it's an enemy attack, spiritually when you have a lot you want to share and then you can't. So, but thank goodness it's back and we're both better. So I've missed being on here and I hope you're doing good. So I have just a big variety of things to share with you all. First of all, I have been, as I am able, in between just the normal chaos of life and the busyness of being a parent, which is a joy. In between all of this, I'm finding, or what they say, carving out time, right, to just enjoy different things and explore and have fun and play, you might say, like a kid. And I'm really enjoying myself, so I want to share some of that with y'all. And there's a deeper message too, and I want to ultimately go ahead and sum up, you might say, what the main message is. And that is a realization that I've had through direct experience. So, you know that my channel is all about specifically growing and taking away a lesson that we can perceive as valuable, even though it was hard. It was a hard lesson to learn. But when we come out of a bad situation or a very difficult situation, and it doesn't have to be a singular type situation, it can be a cumulative type experience that's happened, over many years' time related to people or even a person or people. And so we're getting into the theme of spirituality and spiritual warfare specifically, okay? So if you're new to the channel, I'm kind of introducing a little bit, but I'll make it brief for those who are familiar what my channel is all about. So it may seem like it's all over the place, and that's a little bit of how I am because I have so many interests in a lot of different things. But I also like to focus on the positive side of healing, and it's like you can't just dig in deep to your memory and focusing so much on your really hard experiences, and it's like that's a part of it. That's a part of our coming out of a bad situation and processing. You have to process. You have to recall and evaluate things, because like they say, hindsight is 20/20, and I absolutely think that's a true statement from experience. And so this is all necessary, but I think we have to, I don't know if this is the right situation to use the word temper. It's like we have to temper processing the hard stuff, or we don't have to, but I think it's better, with intentionally. You have to make a commitment and be intentional to bring in some good or positive things along your healing journey. And this may feel unnatural for some time because the loss that you experienced or the hardship you went through, the shock, whatever it is, the betrayal, the just anything that you went through, your mind, if your mind was put through psychological abuse. So in that kind of a situation, you literally have work to do to correct the impact that all this had on you. So there's so much that a person coming out of a bad situation has to do. But my channel is based on a combination of my own life experiences as well as people that I have known and people that I have loved and cared for, even some of the students that I taught. I know a little bit about their lives, and I know a little bit about their hardships, and their outcomes, are all over the place. Some have great outcomes, some, were able to persevere, and some were not. And so I just feel like I've learned so much that I want to help others, but I want to do so from a position of balancing out all the hard stuff with some good stuff. And I know that in the beginning, the good stuff, it's not even something you're going to want to even think about. It's going to feel like a joke. It's going to feel like, what's the point? Why should I even, try to look at the bright side, you might say, to focus on the light instead of the dark, because the dark is so overwhelming for some time, after coming out of that bad place, that dark place. But you just have to work at it. And I would just encourage you, if you are still in the early stages of healing, just don't judge yourself. Allow yourself to feel all the feels, even if you want to, be negative about the positive things for some time. That's okay. It's just a part of it, But so a lot of your old interests may just fall away for some time. And you may not care anymore about music or art or, jogging or writing or crafting or whatever you used to do in the past. It may take some time to let that kind of stuff just little by little re-enter your life. And some of it may not come back. As we heal and we process things and we work on ourselves, and we're going to become essentially a different person. It's not intentional. It's just a result. It's just what happens. And so some of that old stuff, your old interests may not come back. They may be gone forever. And that's okay. And I think that it's just kind of like, it just makes room for the new. It means, that God has something else, something new planned for this season of your life. And so that was a super long opening, but I don't talk a lot about, why I do this, but I do this because I just feel called to. And it's not about popularity and just getting out to a million people or millions of people or anything like that, but clearly, but I feel like it will get to the right people if it's meant to and when it's meant to. So that's why I do this. But, let me just share this. I've got this little figurine, I guess you might say, of this wolf in sheep's clothing. And this is the term that I like to use for people who are operating in this dark energy of Satan, this satanic type energy, okay? And, or if you want to come in from the angle or use the lens of psychology, you would say people who are operating through what they call the dark triad. They have sadistic type, manipulative and malicious type mindsets and behaviors. And so this is not about judgment, because to me, the details of all that, figuring somebody out, doesn't necessarily matter. I think that that's between them and God, but you have to look out for your own well-being. And so just my lens is to use the Bible as my foundation. And so wolves in sheep's clothing is just my preferred term. And when I say this, I mean people who are either, and usually, intentionally malicious in it's almost always multiple ways, or there is an evil presence influencing a person or operating through a person. And I think that this can happen without them even being aware of it. And I think that we can all look back on our lives and be able to recognize, I regret saying this. I regret doing that. And we all, have regrets. The idea is to work to become more conscious, to catch that kind of stuff and And not to, convict ourselves, because it's kind of like, do we really even have that authority? But just to acknowledge, hey, I shouldn't have done that, which is a healthy, functioning conscience, There's people who have that, and those of us who do, then we're going to feel sorry for things that maybe, we regret in the past. And then, of course, through the spiritual lens, you would ask for forgiveness, and then you would, evolve and change from there and grow, okay? But when you look at this little figurine, I kept it up for a long time, and I think that this is a good reminder. This shouldn't be your number one and total focus of every day, but it should be important and something to remember when you head out the door, out into the world. Because again, the Bible says, "Behold, I send you out as sheep amidst the wolves." Okay, but there's something missing, and I didn't recognize this something that's missing until very, very recently in this little figurine. I'm curious if you can guess what I think it is that's missing. I'll go ahead and tell you. So, on the other side here, where my pinky is, behind the little lamb here, okay, I think that the grass, the rock or foundation, the ground here, should extend out further, and back behind this little innocent, vulnerable lamb, there should be a lion, and to represent God, because that would be a more holistic, you might say, representation of the spiritual battle. But maybe he could be captured artistically in this little figurine, the lion, as there and very large and powerful, but maybe not seen or behind a tree, because that's really more like what it's like. And I'm saying this from personal experience, and I bet if you have reached a certain, part of your walk, your awareness journey, you can look back and realize that there were times when things were almost supernatural. There were times when it felt like the hand of God was a part of getting you out of a situation, a bad situation, or opening a door to a better situation for you, or even revealing something to you that, the way that it came about just seems statistically impossible. There's always these little sparks of the numinous, or little hints of the numinous, if you kind of think back. And I have worked to get to a place where it becomes natural to me, sort of automatic, and something that I can catch in real time, because I think that just is nice and enjoyable and really adds to our faith walk, and it just reminds us that we're never alone. And so, because like in this little statue, this little lamb, this little baby here is alone. But in reality, we're not, see. And so you have, this person, symbolically, metaphorically, thinking that they have the upper hand in the situation with a vulnerable, naive person. But in reality, there's, this, I'm going to use my microphone here, this, there's God. There's God over here. And God sees all of it. And He's over all of it. Now, I can't sit here and explain why bad things happen. Because even I think if a person's really hurting and in a bad place, picking out little verses in the Bible and saying things like, well, God's ways are higher, that typically isn't going to feel sufficient, like a sufficient answer to a person that's really hurting and dealing with why did this or that happen? So I certainly don't have all the answers, but I do believe that if you stay committed to trusting God And it's okay to, be honest with him about your feelings and when you're hurting and you're struggling and you're trying to understand things. But I think if you remain persistent, steadfast, then, it says that we can knock and the door shall be opened. Seek and you shall find. And so I think sometimes God holds off on just immediately answering us, when we have these really hard questions, because he wants things to be learned. He wants us to learn things in such a way that it sticks. Because think of it this way: if you have a teacher that's giving you a test and they're like, okay, tomorrow we're going to have our test, and go ahead and read over. I'll give you 45 minutes here in class today to read over the answers. Okay, and so here's the answers, and then you can just recall them or whatever, and you're going to pass your test, and that's it. Are you going to really remember those things? You may use your short-term memory, to ace your test the next day. But are those things going to stick? I would say no, because they're not true lessons. A lesson is something that there's more to it. There's twists and turns. And there's things that feel unfair from our perspective, our very limited perspective. There's things that feel wrong. There's losses. There's, our world being turned upside down and flipped backwards, and we're just, in a fog and confused and all this. But it's because you're in the middle of it. You have to persist. You have to stand, as the Bible says. We are called to just be able to stand, or I would say to withstand. And so, because at some point, every lesson is almost like a little mini journey within the greater journey, and at some point, we're going to get our answer. And when we get this answer, we'll have gone through so much to get the answer that there's no way we're ever going to forget it. You see what I'm saying? It's gonna stick for sure. And only a Father who loves us to such a degree as giving his life for us, right? His Son would be willing to watch his own children that he loves unconditionally, really, would be willing to watch us suffer to learn the lesson. And so, and I think about stuff like this because God is described as love. God is love. And if he loves us, okay, then he wouldn't want us to suffer. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole Garden of Eden situation with, when sin came into the world. And I mean, there's all that too. I'm just talking about, right now in our lives, making it personal. But it's kind of like, I think sometimes we do things or make decisions that impact another person out of what we perceive as love, but it winds up really, if you are being really honest with yourself, it's a selfish love. And I won't really get into the details of that because it's a touchy subject. But you can just think about that. But God is willing to be a witness to our suffering so that we get a lesson that's going to help us to evolve. And again, one of the biggest points of comfort for me that I have made peace with is that if you look at this life as being all there is, then it's going to feel extremely unfair. You're going to probably be very, what's the word? I'm at a loss for words right now. It's just going to make you a mess emotionally and all this other stuff. But if you look at this life as only part of your journey, and that there's a life beyond the physical, okay? Just this actual physical, if you look at it as there's a lot more beyond the unseen realm, okay? Heaven, however you want to say it. Then it does make sense, why things take as long as they do. Lessons, and going through these things to get our lessons. And, it's like, why would God do that if our lifespan is really just so short, but it's not. And so it all makes sense in that manner. And that's why you can't just pick and choose, these little pieces and parts of God's Word. You kind of have to look at the bigger picture, okay? And so, yeah, that's kind of where I am. But God sees it all. And it's this is just a tiny little part. And it's missing the biggest piece. And so, to me, you reach a point of healing, a really good point of healing, when you're not spending so much time thinking about it anymore. I'm doing it right now in this video just because I don't know where you all might be on your journey. And I hope that, the words that I feel like I'm inspired to speak and share with you all, I hope that they're encouraging for you. But in my personal life, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the past. I just don't. I'm too busy. And it's a good thing. Now, do I think about it? Yeah, sure. But it's not my main primary focus, focal point of my days. And so let's move into the fun and crazy things that even you can do to balance out, your personal journey of growth and processing hard things. Or maybe you're kind of beyond all that too, and you're ready to move on to some new fun things and try out new stuff. Okay, so sewing. Yeah, the last time I have used a sewing machine was in middle school. And so I wanted to try it again. And for the life of me, I've read the booklet, I figured out how to, put the thread on there, how to, wind up your bobbin and all this stuff and all the little terminology. The words are still new to me, but, and then off I went, with my foot pedal and trying to sew. And I just had some scrap fabric here. And yeah, this is what I got. And I didn't understand what in the world I was doing wrong. So, yeah, if you have this happen, you got to put down the little foot, what they call the foot, to hold your fabric down. Yeah, so that's, I thought you might get a kick out of that. That's something I've been playing around with. And, of course, I'm still knitting. I love to knit. And I really like it because I can sit there on the couch and watch my favorite shows while I knit. But I still paint from time to time. I'm not painting as often as I used to, but I want to get back into it. And so what I am brainstorming right now is to kind of mix together a couple of different concepts, and I'm going to share that with you here. I'm out of space. I do need more space in here. Okay, I think that'll stay without falling. So I love, love, love to paint the night sky. And so this is one that I did a while back. I think I probably already shared it. And this is watercolors. And this was just a quick and fun little exercise. And of course, I like to make it look like it's magical, and maybe some of the northern lights and things like that. And you can splatter the stars, and then you can go back and with your little, white gel pen or just a very opaque paint and a paintbrush and add in some bigger stars. I think the different sizes of your stars is going to make it look more realistic. And then I have this one here. And I think I've shared this before too, but I really like this one. It's got the little path down there at the bottom. And so one time I got creative and I tried to make anyway, a manta ray, what they call a manta ray, because I had seen one in the ocean. And I thought, okay, on the top, they're typically black, not like a regular gray stingray, but the manta rays are black on the top. But I made the top of it more like a cosmos, right? Like the heavens. And my new idea, since the holidays are basically here, if you go to the store anyway, I think I want to make a cup of coffee or hot cocoa, kind of like this one here in the middle. But instead of it being coffee or hot cocoa, I want to make it some stars. So that's going to be my next project. I'm really excited about it. And I've been going around the yard and picking up these gorgeous leaves. I mean, look at that. Isn't that amazing? Just so rich. I mean, the colors are incredible. Look at that. I like when there's different colors in one leaf. And look at this one. It's almost like leather. It's beautiful. But yeah, so I went around the yard and I picked up all these different leaves and come back in, and if you enjoy making prints of leaves, one of the quickest and easiest ways to do it is to get yourself some acrylic markers. I got this one on sale because there was one marker that had leaked, but I didn't mind it because it was a great reduction. But yeah, so get yourself some acrylic paint markers. I think I said paint markers. I don't know. Let me get some water. Hang on. And let me find one. I can't even find one. Here's one that I colored blue. But you can, it's just really easy, put your little leaves on a paper towel and hold them down and just paint them. And then you can press them into your art journal. And when I did that earlier today, I'll show it to you. This is just something I do for fun, to relax. But what you can do is press them in here, and then if you want to save them after that, I'm going to look into how to preserve the colors, because I think one of the channels that I follow had a tutorial on this recently, and I'll have to look and see some kind of presentation or demonstration rather on how to do that. So I'm going to look into that, and if I find it, I'll share it with you all. But and then you can preserve them and then add that even to your journal. But I want to pull a lesson from this example. Okay, so let's pretend that in this life experience there are no actual leaves like this. Let's pretend like this is all we have. Okay, these markings or drawings, and they're almost like skeletal looking or fossilized looking. It's like line art. And so if you look at this compared to a real leaf, and I'm sorry, I know I'm moving my microphone all over the place. Look at the difference in the color intensity and just, the fullness. Here in the real leaf, it's not just simply marks. It's an entire entity of its own, object of its own. But if you didn't know, if you had never seen a real leaf and this is all you've ever seen, then, imagine how many different ways people would try and define this, And so I view the ultimate truth, which we all want, we all long for it, because we feel like I think it will give us all the answers we need. It'll pacify us. It will help us to make peace, with the tough things we've been through. I view, or if you want to metaphorically view, rather, these real leaves as the ultimate truth. Okay? In my example here, in the real world, they're not there. All we have is, our experiences, which kind of, they make an imprint on us, don't they? Every experience makes an imprint, an impression, a lasting effect. And, imagine if you were to continue using these same leaves, in an art project, and coloring them and going through your entire book here and making, prints of your leaves. Even one leaf is going to make different prints. And our experiences in life are that way. And so when we try to relate to another person and have our experience validated, a lot of times another person can't relate to us because even though they've gone through something similar, okay, the traces that were left of this lesson or this ultimate truth in our life and the way that it was presented in this other person's life is going to be different. And so if you think about it, if we're trying to, I guess, be research minded or scientifically minded, then we would put together the prints that we have and kind of try to piece it together to make sense of the greater whole, okay? And try to imagine what this is. Now, the other metaphor is that this is in a book, right? And we know that the Bible it says that nothing shall be added to or taken away. And I don't know what verse that is, but I know it's in there somewhere. And so, that's really supposed to be our book of authority on life itself. But even that is kind of like this, because you're going to have different churches and people and groups that are going to argue over what the different books mean within the Bible, or even the verses, So the ultimate truth is always going to feel elusive. But what's interesting, and this is just per my experience, and I'm about to wind this up because I was trying to not make this too long. So what I'm learning when I'm trying to make sense of things is that when I'm striving, to just press out the truth out of a situation, and I'm just, the key word here is striving, okay? Then, this is what you get. And what you get is going to be different than what this other person gets and all this stuff. Whereas here's the ultimate truth. Now, what if this whole time in this world where this is all we have, what if this is not all we have, but it's what we think is all we have, okay? And maybe that's for various reasons, such as, this is something that we can do ourselves and therefore gratify the ego and things like that, okay? So many different reasons. But what if the truth is there, but it's just missed a lot, okay, or overlooked? And I think that maybe all these different parts of, what you might call ultimate truth are revealed to us. I think they're meant to be cloaked or veiled or hidden until the right time. And I'm sure there's verses about stuff like this, that God reveals things in His timing, at the right time. And there's even this old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, things like that. I think that the truth is like that. And I think that this is the part that comes to us in such a way that it builds the relationship between us and God Himself. And I even like the little ones with all the different colors. But it's kind of like, it's not all about just learning and growing, I don't think. Because remember, God is described in the Bible as love. God is love. And what's love without relationship? And so I think that we have to get to a point where we realize that trying to do it all ourselves is, it's going to be productive, but it's not going to be the kind of fruit that is sustainable long term. And that reminds me of a verse that, where I think Jesus is talking about drawing water from a well to quench this person's thirst. And the comparison here, he compares that to the true living waters or well. I'll drop it in the description. I'll have to find the verse. And what he points out is that, you'll never thirst again once you drink from those waters. And so it's kind of like that. And I think that we can start to ease into this place of peace and letting go of working so hard at trying to force a place of acceptance and peace, all this striving and stuff that only results in partial results. And this is a big part of your faith walk, okay? But when you start to kind of ease up on that, then you start to ease into peace. And you're going to find that God will, it's like a revelation. It's like in the Bible. It's like, the book of Revelation. But it's just in stages or levels or layers, of revelation. And that is the part that the ego's got to be out of the way. The striving part of the ego and the do-it-yourself type part of the ego. It's got to be out of the way. But that's the part where the relationship becomes. And when that starts to unfold in your life, then what is that rooted in? It's rooted in love. Okay? And that love is so great that it is like those living waters that you're not thirsting anymore. And so really peace becomes a result of that relationship. And also I think the parts that maybe we haven't found all the leaves in the yard yet. Okay, my little paper plate here, I've got all kind of stuff in here, grass. I pick up everything. But it's kind of like you accept that there's more. There's going to be more leaves out there, and you haven't found them all. But how exciting is that? It becomes exciting because, at this stage, God is proving himself to you, and God is proving his presence in your life, and the relationship is growing, and you start to not worry so much about having all the answers. Because you know that if you even need an answer, which you may not, but if you do, then it's going to be revealed to you at the right time. And you don't even have to get your ego involved and work at it. You know what I mean? So that's the message. And it's certainly, I feel like, not from me or from me alone. It feels inspired because I'm processing as it's coming to me. But I hope that you are inspired, and I hope that you are persevering no matter where you are in your journey. I hope that you're enjoying it and just going at your own pace, but at a pace that feels right and not so hurried, and ultimately very peaceful for you. And I thank you so much for coming along to hear the message. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.